Good morning. Okay, so I think eighth five-year plan, right? Yes? Done, no? In that, we were discussing something like balance of payment. Okay. Okay. And in the first generation reforms, now listen very carefully. In the first generation reforms, okay, so that is all those reforms which we have implemented immediately after 1991. That is, from 1991 to 2000, whatever reforms we have brought in, okay, these reforms are called as the first generational reforms. First generational reforms. Okay. And all those reforms which we have implemented after 2000 are called as the second generation reforms. Is that clear? Okay. So second generation reforms. I'll come to that. Well, let me explain the concept. I think the voice is low, is it? I think, okay, fine. So now on the other side here, we can see that during that point of time, listen very carefully, we know that our CAD was high. Now you know what is CAD, right? Current account deficit is high, okay. 1991, okay, CAD was high. 2, how about our Forex reserve? Forex reserve was less, okay, less than 5 billion. And we could not manage our trade for more than 15 days. Trade could not be managed. This is the situation. Is this clear? So I need not write trade deficit now anymore. Why? Because you're writing something like the current account deficit. Current account deficit, okay. Then our PSUs were making loss. This is one more observation. Most of our public sector enterprises were making loss. That means revenues for the government was less, okay. And moreover, we were spending, or government was spending a lot of money on fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit. Government was borrowing. So government is borrowing means it is government's debt burden. Government's debt burden is on a higher side. Fiscal deficit is high means government's debt. Okay, government's debt burden. Okay, so today what will happen, we will, in the second half of the class, I'll also dictate some structural reforms. But of course, structural reforms is something like reforms with industry, reforms with the banking sector, reforms with respect to currency convertibility. Okay, so reforms with respect to all these aspects. Okay, but at the same time, again, when you are discussing the external sector class, in the external sector class, you will, or I'll be discussing industry for you, I'll be discussing services for you. So this is part of my domain, so industry and services also. That time again, we'll be discussing all the industrial policies from 1956. Okay, so that is what we should understand. So debt burden of the government was very high. Debt burden of the government was very high. That is also one more thing. And one more observation is also that our inflation was high or low during that point of time. Inflation was also on a higher side. Inflation was also on a higher side. These are the things. Along with this, one more observation here. Okay, so we landed up into this crisis. All these situations were there, and we also landed up into this crisis called balance of payment crisis. This is what we have discussed. And to handle this crisis, we have also approached banks like, there are these banks like IMF, International Monetary Fund, IMF. Whenever a country faces financial crisis, it will go to these banks for help, and IMF will give something called as conditional loans. Conditional loans. Okay, so conditional loans. Now, whenever somebody is giving conditional loans, there are certain conditions that are laid. Okay, so they say you have to follow certain conditions. Okay, and we try to implement their conditions as part of, structural reforms. And also, we wanted to bring in something called as the macroeconomic stability. Macroeconomic. You would have discussed, in the basic macroeconomic demand class, what is demand, what is supply. Okay, so then what is macroeconomy, what is microeconomy, right? Okay, so macroeconomics deals with those aspects which, those indicators which will affect the economy on a wider scale, okay, wider scale. So macroeconomic stability, this is something which we wanted to bring in. Why? Again, this was also asked by IMF. We are going to give you loan, and you should bring in something called as macroeconomic stability. So macroeconomic stability means stabilize Indian economy with respect to several macroeconomic factors. Macroeconomic factors like handle your GDP well, okay, handle your deficits well, okay, so you have to increase this, we have to decrease the deficit, obviously, we have to keep our inflation under control. Inflation should be maintained under control. Okay. And also today's newspaper was really, I think Indian Express was talking about something like the freebies. Leave aside the political aspect. Leave aside the political aspect of freebies. Political aspect is, I think our Delhi CM says something, okay, and the central government says freebies, okay, I think, okay, so the thing is, this culture of freebies should be going. There is this discussion, okay. That means there should be more of revenue generation, and you will not give freebies with the logic of, winning elections, Based on that logic itself, we also came up with mechanisms like deregulation of petrol and diesel. Regulation means what? Government is going to regulate the prices of petrol and diesel. That means government was giving subsidy earlier. Government was giving subsidy with respect to petrol and diesel earlier. And currently, government is not giving subsidy with respect to petrol and diesel. Are you able to get this? Okay, so by 2014, what happened? Government has completely, 2014 and 15, government has completely removed subsidies with respect to petrol and diesel. This is called as what? Deregulation. Regulation, government is giving. What is government is giving? Suppose the price is 100 rupees, okay, and the oil price is 100. IOCL is selling it at 45 only for us. Okay, who fixes this price? This 45 is fixed by whom? This 45 is fixed by government, okay, and that means this is basically called as the administered price mechanism. I'll talk about it, I'll also dictate notes that time, but what you should understand is today's government also, administered price mechanism means who is administering the price? Government is administering the price. Government is interfering with respect to price fundamentals. So government says sell petrol at 45. This is administered by government. That means it is not fixed by the market. Therefore, the rest of the 55 rupees out of 100 should be funded by whom? Government, in the form of what? Subsidy. Are you able to get this? Now, the BJP government from the beginning was talking about reducing it. BJP government, not now. It is from the beginning itself. This government talks about something like keeping the deficits under control. Now again, there was a discussion on subsidies, like what are the subsidies which you can really give and what are the subsidies which you should not be giving. It's a very enlightening article. Okay, subsidies to be given, subsidies you should not be given. Okay, so there are certain subsidies which will give you fish, and there are subsidies which will teach you how to fish, to be very specific. How to fish is basically I can spend money on skill development. I can spend money on Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Okay, so, but you cannot just throw away freebies, okay, without proper channelization. For example, ration shops. More than 50% of the food grain is not delivered efficiently or effectively to the right beneficiary in India. Okay, so this I'll discuss in the food security. That means your subsidy is getting wasted. Your subsidy is getting wasted. So to handle all that, you have to first of all, if you only handle all that, you can handle this problem of what? Fiscal deficit. I think you should be understanding this. If you have to handle fiscal deficit well, okay, government over a period of time should remove something called as APM. APM is what? Administered pricing mechanism. Administered pricing mechanism. The government should not administer the price. Let the market decide the price. Let the market decide the price. That means if the barrel prices outside are increasing, oil prices outside are increasing, then you also have to focus on increasing the price within the country. This is what they were doing. Administer means government will not decide the price anymore. We will leave things to the market. So after 2015, we find that there is no subsidy given with respect to petrol and diesel. Petrol and diesel. Once a while, government says IOCL reduce petrol prices by 1 rupee, 1 rupee 50 paisa. But that is also has created a loss of almost like more than 6,000 crores for IOCL. You may feel it is 1 rupee and 1 rupee 50 paisa, but the impact will be huge when it comes for the impact on the government. I think you're getting my point, right? Okay, so macroeconomic indicators have to be handled, okay, like handling increasing growth, reducing what? Fiscal deficit, reducing what? Current account deficit. If you have to reduce current account deficit, you should also focus on reducing the trade deficit. Reducing the trade deficit. Remember current account deficit? So how do you reduce the trade deficit? Is we have to reduce import and we should focus on increasing what? Export. Focus on increasing export. This is how. And also price stability. Price stability is nothing but inflation. Today RBI's policies are all focused towards handling this problem called inflation. RBI's policy is all focused towards handling this problem called inflation. Okay, so these things have to be handled. These things have to be handled. That is, these are called as the macroeconomic indicators, or bring in macroeconomic stability. And along with that, they also said you also maintain your currency stabilities. Currency stability means I am talking about rupee value stability. Rupee value stability. That means before 1991, currency values were mainly RBI's interference with respect to determining the currency value, etc. What is dollar rupee conversion, etc. RBI's interference was more. After 1990, they were talking about RBI's interference with respect to determination of currency value should be less. Means what? Leave your currencies mainly to the market. Leave your currencies mainly to the market. Unless and until there is something really wrong, RBI, please don't interfere. Unless and until there is something really wrong, RBI, please don't interfere. RBI will only interfere only after a particular situation. For example, RBI says the currency of rupee value, rupee and dollar should be between, let's say, 70 to 75 rupees. This is the width. This is the band you have fixed. So RBI, as long as our currency is between 70 to 75, okay, RBI will not interfere. You are leaving things to the market. But if it goes below 70 probably, or if it goes above 75, then RBI will interfere and bring in some stabilization measures. But otherwise, on a general note, don't interfere. That means you're moving closer to the market with respect to many things. Not only with respect to opening up your market for foreign goods, foreign services, you're also moving closer to the market even with respect to currency stability. Are you able to get this? Okay. So rupee value stability also you have to focus. Like this, they said you have to do all this. Now to do all this and also to maintain them on a long-term basis. You have to do not just about doing. Now you increase the growth. In the 8th 5-year plan, we touch somewhere like 6.5%, let's say. That means you are able to cross the Hindu rate of growth. Hindu rate of growth, that is low levels of growth. You are successful in crossing the growth. But how about maintaining the growth at that particular level for a longer period of time? So even today, there was an article in the newspaper again. If you see in the explained column, They were talking about very important side headings for exam. There's this article which clearly talks about even today the problem and challenge is not about inflation, but rather it is about the customer confidence. Okay, customer confidence, that means inflation expectations. Inflation expectation means what? If I expect that the inflations are going to increase, suppose I expect that the inflation is going to increase, what will I do? I will ask for higher wages. Are you able to get my point? No, if the worker is there, worker feels tomorrow inflation is going to increase in the market. Inflation is going to increase in the market. Then what he will feel? I want more wages. I want more wages. This is also called as the inflationary spiral. Okay, inflationary spiral or the wage spiral you call it as. That means inflation affecting wages and wages will affect inflation. Are you able to get this? Inflation will affect wages. Inflation is high means the workers will ask for what? Higher wages. And if you have more wages, for example, MGNREGS program has increased rural inflation. Earlier, MGNREGS program has increased rural inflation. People stopped eating vegetarian. They started eating eggs, chicken, fish. Why? MGNREGS. Wait. MC, because of MGNREGS, food inflation with respect to these items also increased. Are you able to get my point, right? Okay, so that means here there are multiple factors. So they are talking about this wage or inflation expectations. Okay, inflation expectation, what will happen with respect to inflation? Okay, I'll talk about it a little while later. But these things, if they have to be maintained, along with bringing in stability, IMF was saying you also have to bring in something called as reforms, which we call it as the structural reforms. Okay, so otherwise you can't maintain them for a longer period. So structural reforms will focus not just on one aspect. It focuses on multiple aspects. For example, it will focus on how do you handle your industry. So it also focuses on industrial liberalization. That means earlier it was the era of license Raj, isn't it? That means entry for industries was difficult. Along with that, production was difficult. Means you can't produce beyond a point, or you're not producing according to market fundamentals. You're not producing according to market. Are you able to get this? Okay, so there was one movie also, Guru. Guru movie is basically Aishwarya Rai and Abhishek Bachchan. It was a story of Dhirubhai Ambani. The way he makes the IAS officer sign. Okay, so he goes and dumps some load in IAS officer's house so that he signs. So this is very difficult. That means bureaucrat is God during that point of time. Unless and until he gives you permission, you can't even increase the production. So such things should end. So production should be based on market. I'll talk about it. So industry, they were talking, bring reforms with respect to industry. Along with industry, you should also bring reforms with respect to the banking sector or the financial sector. Okay, I think monetary policy still not done, right? You'll get to know. But banking sector, most of the banks by the time of 1990s were not doing well. PSUs were not doing well, very good. Banks also are not doing well. Then what was doing well? Nothing. Okay. Olden days are golden days, somebody says don't believe. Okay, so they have their own perception. But economics wise, you can see situation was not okay. I think you're getting my point, right? Okay, so banking sector was not doing well, and therefore they also came up with banking reforms or financial sector reforms. They also came up with financial sector reforms. With respect to banking, etc. also, there were reforms. Similarly, government's fiscal policy reforms. Fiscal policy reforms. Okay, so one of the important reforms, fiscal policy reforms means you also have to bring in reforms with respect to tax. So that's the reason I said, no, these reforms means complete syllabus. Are you able to get my point, right? Complete syllabus. But we'll know what happened, that's all, as of now. But we'll discuss in depth when we get into industry, when we get into taxing. Okay, so that means inefficient tax policies were there. Okay, so therefore high tax rates. Did I talk about it? High tax rate, tax base. Not this class. Okay. So we'll discuss. We'll discuss. Okay. So tax reforms were also suggested. Okay. So why tax reforms? Because unless you do proper tax reforms, revenue for the government will not increase. Revenues for the government will not increase. Also, you should also focus on the regulatory bodies. You know, regulatory bodies. Regulatory bodies are like something like our Reserve Bank of India. Regulatory bodies, RBI, okay, and you also have what, SEBI, Security Exchange Board of India, are able to get this. And similarly, we were also talking about reforms in the capital markets, etc. Capital market, or basically we were also focusing on the share markets, etc. Okay, so this share markets are regulated by this regulatory body called SEBI, okay. Anyhow, when I'm dictating, I'll explain also, like basic, I will explain what were the part of the first generation, structural reforms, what we did. Is that clear? Okay, but why all this has to be done? Otherwise, your macroeconomic indicators, you may put effort, even today, if there is a question on how can government increase, what are the measures, or the question says, the impact of COVID had a negative. Impact of COVID was definitely negative with respect to economic growth of the country. Okay. So what measures have to be taken by the government to increase GDP growth, economic growth, along with stabilizing our rupee value, That means even today, if there are such questions, okay, how do you handle such questions? Straight away, first you should go to the concept. What is the concept? Concept is very simple. The concept is, remember, you know this formula, C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So whenever we don't get any idea in the exam, okay, so how do I structurize it? So that means if I have to increase my GDP, I should increase what? C. I should increase what? I. Government exports. So what are the measures that the government has to take in terms of increasing C? Is one aspect of it. During the COVID pandemic also, after COVID impact, how does government focus, or what measures government or RBI should take in terms of increasing consumption? Okay. For example, creating more jobs. Employment is one aspect to increase consumption. Yes. Easy credit facility. Loans if I get, I will buy. I'll buy houses, I'll buy motorcycles, whatever it is. That means easy loan facility, again credit facilities. Okay, are you able to get this? Packages like Atmanirbhar Bharat expansion. Yes, that is one. Or some point from today's newspaper which says increasing consumer confidence. Increasing consumer confidence means if this fellow has confidence only, okay, then only he will spend money. Otherwise what he will do, will not spend. Are you able to get this? Now, during second wave, what we did? During second wave, we decided not to spend. First wave, we said, different breed. We are different. All the viruses are inside us, and no virus can touch us. We are not like the white man. We are different. This was our attitude, first wave. First wave attitude was this only. Okay, and then second wave, what you have understood? You are no different. You are just a human being. Just. And that too, in developed countries, at least they had health infrastructure. You don't even have that. You understood that, oh, we are also humans. Then what you did? No consumption. No consumption. Fear of third wave. Fear of third wave, automatically consumption will drop. Fear. Consumer confidence will not be there. He will try to save. Demand will not be there. Bank will say, I'll give you credit. You will say, no, keep it with you. I don't want. You only keep. Why you want motorcycle? No. That time, lockdown, what you will do? How will you increase demand then? How will you increase? Jobs are going. If you go out, there is a problem. Moreover, fear. Are you able to get this? So demand did not increase as expected after the second wave. It took a lot of time. And in the rural areas, programs like MGNREGS helped us, saved us basically. Are able to get this point? No. So completely you can't say welfare schemes are useless. Going against the current government, not against basically. We'll take a balanced view, no. Where you need schemes, where you don't need schemes. MGNREGS saved us during this period. Agriculture was one sector which was growing at 3.5 in 2020. That means during pandemic, the sector which you thought will not help you grow has saved you. You thought, no, this sector, no. The prime moving force should be industry over agriculture, always from the beginning. But what happened during 2020? Only sector that was growing positively at the rate of 3.5 was what? Agriculture. Agriculture. So that means what you should understand, don't tamper. Don't play games with agriculture. Let it stay. Are you able to get my point? No, your policies should always have something for the agriculture. This is the logic which we have learnt from the pandemic. I think you got my point. Similarly, with respect to what should be done? Okay. And similarly, government, there are certain conditions for the government. Then exports, if you have to increase, what has to be done? I think you're getting my point. Then the structure will be clear. CIGS, GX, and then the conclusion. I think you're getting it right? Okay. So till here, is it clear? And why tax reforms, why fiscal policy reforms, why all these reforms? See, since monetary policy is not done, one thing what you should understand is, immediately in 1990s, okay, we came up with several committees which we have appointed, okay, with respect to tax-related reforms, okay. So if you want to increase tax, government has to increase taxes. Okay, one simple logic. If government has to increase this tax revenue, okay, what should government do? Did we discuss this, mentioned earlier? Discuss, no? No, not this class. Okay, if taxes have to be increased, what has to be done? Okay, one way is not good, this is not good, that is increasing what? Tax rate. This is what the current opposition parties are saying. Why are you putting vegetables into 5%? Necessities also you are taxing. Earlier something was in 0% in GST. Okay, and why are you pushing it? Okay, I'm not into the political aspect. This is not the right way to increase revenues. But in 1960s, 70s, 80s, remember, we had very high tax rates. Don't think if you have very high tax rates, you will get high revenue. That is a mistake. Very high tax rates initially may give you revenue. Initially it will give you revenue. But over a period of time, you will not get revenue. I think you're getting my point, right? I'm getting my point. See, if I have to take something like the tax rate here, tax rate on x-axis, and if I have to take tax revenues on the y-axis, and if I have to draw a graph, I think the graph will somewhat look in this fashion. Okay, the graph will somewhat look in this fashion. That is, you will find that at this tax rate, till here, the rate is increasing. This is the optimum tax rate. Okay, so till here, the rate, at this rate, optimum rate, revenue is maximum. But beyond this rate, if you still increase, what will happen? Revenues are beyond this rate, beyond this O dash, beyond O, if I'm still increasing the tax rate, what is happening? Revenues are falling. So tax rate is never a mechanism. Increasing tax rate is never a mechanism to increase revenues over a long-term period. Why? Because people may evade. There can be something called as what? Tax evasion. Out of 100 rupees profit, if I have to pay 70 rupees as tax, why should I do business? Simple, number one. Number two, my whole life is going in filing taxes only. State government asks VAT, you have to pay excise, I have to pay service, okay, and I have to pay that, this, that. Then when should I do business? Are you able to get my point? The thing is, whole life is going in. That is the reason government says we have to bring in tax reforms. Even today, there are reforms with respect to GST because of these reasons. Okay, and that time tax rates were high. That means as part of the fiscal policy reforms, but you have to also focus on which reforms? Reforms related to taxes. Are you able to get this? Okay, only then deficits can be handled. Very good tax policy, more revenue. More revenue, less deficit. More revenue, less deficit. No, deficit is what? Gap between revenues and expenditure. Deficit is gap between revenue and expenditure. So then what is the other way? Other way of increasing tax revenue is you have to pull everybody into the tax ambit. This is what, okay, this is basically, we call it as what? We have discussed unemployment chapter. Okay, so informal, formal, discussed. Okay, so formalization of Indian economy. Formalization, that chai wala who's selling chai there, I told you. Okay, so he's operating in that unorganized informal sector and is making lot of money selling that water tea. Yesterday also I had that tea. Yesterday evening. Then I was surprised. Arey yaar, quality kuch bhi nahi hai, fir bhi you're making money. And you're not even paying taxes. You're enjoying life. Okay, so such people also should be brought into the tax ambit. Tax ambit. Today you may not pay. Tomorrow you become organized, you pay. Are you able to get this? Okay, so widening this. Third, you should also focus on increasing efficiency. Which efficiency? Tax efficiency. Very important. Very important. I gave you the example of the lorry moving from Chennai to Delhi. Fantastic. It dances and moves in 14 days because your taxing system. Are you able to get my point? Okay. So this is something, two more words which I wanted to discuss, and then we will write current account. And macroeconomic stability is clear. That means you have to bring stability with respect to macroeconomic indicators, macroeconomic policies. Is that clear? Okay. Then why should you bring some structural reforms? You have to, if you want to maintain those macroeconomic indicators also, there is a need for bringing reforms with respect to these aspects like taxing, these aspects like industry, with respect to the banking sector, with respect to currency. Are you able to get this point? Okay. Now, third is tax efficiency. Most important is this. From the beginning we were saying, okay, so this from the beginning we are saying you have to focus on increasing what? Tax efficiency. If you want to reduce deficits. So that is the reason 1992-93, we wanted to streamline with some aspects with respect to taxes also. Even today, we are talking about streamlining these taxes. Are you able to get this? A simple example for you so that you will understand why there is so much of inefficiency in India. So generally, if you know, even today, petrol is there. Are petrol and diesel, are they included in GST? Are you paying GST when you're buying petrol? No. You're paying excise separately for the center. You're paying VAT or sales tax for the state. Both put together is more than 28 in most of the states. Most of the states, more than 28. Means oil is becoming... One more thing. Not only this, the vegetable oil, especially palm oil, we import hell a lot of palm oil. That is the reason Niti Aayog's 7th Governing Council meeting, which was held 3 days back, I think. Okay, there was one important discussion. If you want to handle inflation, if you want to handle trade deficit, it's not just about this. You also have to handle vegetable oils, and specifically palm oil. You're importing so much of what? Palm oil. Are you able to get this point? Okay, so now efficiency wise, on production, remember, on production or on manufacturing. Whenever you manufacture a product, whenever we produce a product, on manufacturing, on production, what is the tax we levy? We used to levy a tax called what? Excise. Excise is levied on production. Excise is levied on manufacturing. Everybody, is this clear? Excise is levied. Okay, but then how about this? This will also come again. Customs. Customs is basically levied on what? Customs is levied on import, and customs is levied on what? Export. Customs is levied on import and export. White dress officers. Okay, so customs is levied on, you're importing a product, you're exporting a product. Is this clear? Okay, so is this clear, everybody? Production, manufacturing, I'm manufacturing steel, I'm manufacturing cars, I'm manufacturing any of these items. The central government levies something called as what? Excise. Excise. But the product, when it comes to the state, okay, there was something called as what? Sales tax, or you call it as, now you're calling it as VAT, and that is also not there. Now it is GST altogether. Okay, at the state level, sales tax, manufacturing, you're levying what? Excise. This is generally levied by whom? Center. This is levied by whom? State. Now, who levies which tax is decided by the constitution. Okay, who levies which tax? Levy, L-E-V-Y. Based on which list that particular tax falls. You have this 3 lists, no? Union list, state list and concurrent list. In polity you will read. So whichever tax falls in the union list, it will be levied by whom? Center. Okay, fine. So now if you can understand one example, then I think the things will be very clear. So suppose, let's say there is a mobile phone which is costing around 20,000 rupees. Mobile phone. A mobile phone is costing. Example is better actually. When example is there, you will get to know what is the problem. Mobile phone is 20,000, cost is 20,000. Now let's say the central government decided it is going to levy something like 10% excise or tax on this. Okay, 10% excise. What will be the cost of the mobile now? See here. It will be 20,000 plus 10%. 10% of 20,000. 10% of 20,000. How much? 10% of 20,000? 2,000. 10% of 20,000 is 2,000. And this 2,000 is nothing but what? This is nothing but what? Excise. Just an example. Okay. Now this product has at the state level. Now at the state level, what is going to happen at the state level? So at the state level, let's say the state is levying 10%. State is levying 10% VAT or some tax like the sales tax. Now this 10% is levied on this value. Are you able to get this? This 10% was levied on this value. That means 10% of 20,000 is how much? 2,000. I don't have any problem with this 2,000 because it is on the cost of the mobile. I don't have any problem. My problem is 10% of 2,000. 10% of 2,000 is how much? 200. My worry, my issue is with respect to what? This 200. This 200. Why? This 200 is what? Tax on excise. Tax on excise, or this 200 is nothing but tax on tax. I'll just make you write excise means what, that's all. Sales tax means what later. Okay, so when I'm dictating. Is that clear? Okay, so tax on tax. Now this 200, now the mobile cost will become how much? The mobile cost will become 24,200. 24,200, that means extra is how much? 200. This extra is because of tax inefficiency. Your product is going to become costly. It is leading to what inflation? Cost push, which you have discussed. Inflation is done. This is leading to cost push inflation. Are you able to get this? This 200 is extra. Don't say only 200, no. One mobile, 200. One mobile. Remove mobile, keep food. Food is going to become costly. Means common man is affected. Are you able to get my point? Is this clear? So everybody has understood this. Okay, so this is basically the biggest challenge. This is the biggest challenge, and we also use the word, of course, in the taxing class, you will understand this word as the cascading. Cascading effect is tax on tax. Tax on tax. Inefficient. I want you to understand why tax reforms. In the first generation reforms. Why in the structural reforms? Why do you have tax reforms? Because one, rates were high. Rates were high. Problem, rate is high means evasion. People will not pay. Companies will not pay. Next, base is not there. That means most of the people are not included in the tax bracket. Not included. Informal economy, less tax collection. Informal economy, less tax collection. 3, inefficiencies with respect to taxing. This is inefficiency. Why? India is a poor country. Tax itself is a burden in India. Tax itself is a burden. Then tax on tax means it is going to be even a bigger burden. Are you able to get this? So therefore, even they focused on something like tax reforms during that point of time, not just on the reforms with respect to banking, financial policy, industry, etc., but also with respect to taxes. Okay, so I think now new words, only 2, 3 here. One is excise. Excise is on what? Production. Excise duty is levied on what? Production. 2, customs is levied on what? Import and export. Import and export. Okay, this is okay. 3, remember, I use the word cascading effect for tax inefficient. One of the inefficiencies is what? Cascading effect. Cascading means tax on the levy. This 200 is on already collected tax. Already collected tax. Hope it is clear. So that is the reason all these reforms you will find. So it's very difficult for us actually. This is a topic where you find in the first generation reform, second generation reform, they suggested everything. Everything. Structural reforms, that reforms, labor sector reforms and second generation. Okay, so everything. But industry I will discuss. Okay, till here is it clear? Okay. Now, so what was the last thing you have written? Current account deficit we have not written, we have to write. Yes, good. Okay, so, okay, first put the heading BOP. Just 1, 2 lines on BOP. Balance of payment. Balance of payment. BOP of a country can be defined as BOP of a country can be defined as a systematic statement of all economic transactions. A systematic statement of all economic transactions. Systematic statement of all economic transactions of a country. Of a country. Of a country with the rest of the world, with the rest of the world, with the rest of the world, during a specific period, during a specific period, during a specific period, usually 1 year, usually 1 year. Usually 1 year, okay. I'll not get into too much of detail, okay. So only the basic understanding what we discussed. Then put components of BOP. Components of BOP. Okay. Economic transactions with rest of the world, economic transactions with rest of the world are grouped under two different accounts. Two different accounts. One current account, two capital account. One current account, two capital account. Okay. Then put the heading current account. One current account, two capital account. Okay, current account. Okay, write down. It shows export and import. Current account. It shows export and import of visibles visibles, in bracket, also called merchandise, also called merchandise, merchandise, also called merchandise or goods, also called merchandise or goods. Okay, in bracket, trade balance, in bracket, trade balance, close the bracket. We have discussed now first component was what? Trade. Okay, trade balance and close the bracket, no? Trade balance, close the bracket, and invisibles, In invisibles, open the bracket, right? Also called non-merchandise, also called non-merchandise, also called non-merchandise, means non-goods, okay, full stop. Invisibles include services, comma, transfers. See, remittance is also kind of a transfer, one-sided, remember? Transfers and income. Remember that? Trade, remittances, services, income. No confusion. We have discussed that, right? Yes. And income. Okay. That's all. Okay. So that is about the basic of current account. Okay. Okay, so this understanding, we have talked about something like why those reforms and all. This I will come back. Okay, so then you have written, no? That is about the current account. So yesterday we discussed something like one is this aspect, what? Current account. Okay, we have discussed this. And then 2, we have something called as the capital account. Okay. Now let me just brief you what is this capital account. Till here is it clear? Okay, current account is clear. Okay, and capital account, basically you have 2 important aspects in the capital account. One, we have investments. Okay, and 2, we have borrowings. 1, we have investments, and 2, we have borrowings. Okay, no confusion here. One is investment. Which investment? It will be obviously foreign investment. Investment means which investment? BOP is an account of India with rest of the world. Means obviously this will be with which investment? Foreign investment. Okay, so with respect to investment, okay, you will have investments like one, see here, one, we have foreign direct investment. Earlier I think I would have briefed you the basic difference between FDI and FI. Basic difference you know, okay, FDI. And 2, we use the word foreign institutional investment. Foreign institutional investment. Here, you know, you will find that there is one more word here. They'll use something like foreign portfolio investment. Foreign portfolio. They use FPI, foreign portfolio. Okay, so foreign portfolio investment means it's a wider one. You know, foreign portfolio investment is a bigger concept. In it, you also have what? In this foreign portfolio investment, you also have what? Foreign institutional investment. Okay. So here basically it is about investments. Now, Portfolio investment, FDI is not a portfolio investment. Remember, FDI is not a portfolio investment. Okay, FDI is not a portfolio investment. So that is something which you'll remember. Why? Portfolio investment means money goes into different portfolios. Money goes into share market. Okay, so when we say there are different portfolios, different portfolios can be different entities, different sectors. Okay, so you have something like the industry, or you have something like the services. We have something like the banking, or you have IT. Different. So money which is there in the share market can be pooled, or money can get into different portfolios. Are you able to get this? Okay. So that means this is basically a short-term money investment, foreign investment, which generally can get into the share markets. Okay. So are you able to get this? Okay. One is investment. Okay. Two, you have something called as the borrowings. Borrowings are nothing but loans. In this borrowings, we will find something like the ECB, external commercial borrowing. ECB means external commercial borrowing. Okay, write down there only, external commercial borrowing. So in the borrowing, this is also borrowing from outside India. Obviously, everything is borrowing or investment, it is from outside India. So when I'm using the word external commercial borrowing, this is also borrowing from outside India. Okay. Now, Indian corporates generally borrow from outside India, for a long-term period. Indian corporates borrow from outside India for a long-term period. Long-term here is generally more than 1 year. So Indian corporates are borrowing from outside India for a long-term period. Are you able to get this? For more than 1 year. Now I'm saying commercial here, commercial. So that means the rate will be market. There will not be any discounts with respect to the loan rate, etc. It is based on the market rate. Are you able to get this? Market rate. Based on the market means whatever is the rate, you are going to take loan at that particular rate only. There will not be any concessions here. There will not be any concessions. So they are going to give you loan at market rate or the commercial rate. So Indian corporates, why will they borrow from outside? When they feel that the interest rates outside are less? There should be some logic, no? Why will they just like that borrow from outside? They are borrowing from outside when they feel that the inside interest rates outside India are better off. Are you able to get this? So this is basically called as ECB, or external commercial borrowing. That is Indian corporates borrowing money from outside India for a long-term period. Indian corporates borrowing money from outside India for a long-term period. Okay, is this clear? Okay, then you have something called as the external assistance. Okay, so when I use the word external assistance, external assistance means it is something like a soft loan. Remember, external assistance means it is something like a soft loan. I'm writing it here. External assistance means it is something like a soft loan. So what is a soft loan? Loan interest rates are going to be less. Loan interest rates, they are subsidized. Loan interest rates are going to be less. Okay, so for example, Indian government is taking loan from World Bank, or Indian government is taking loan from IMF. So they generally give loans at little lesser rates or subsidized rates. Are you able to get this point? Okay, so this is called as what? External assistance. External assistance is not a grant. Remember, grant and a loan, we have talked about it. Grant means transfer, no, one-sided transfer. Grant need not be paid back. But this is loan only, but it is a soft loan. Are you able to get it? Okay, so just at least understand, okay, what the BOP is. So tomorrow, now if you see first generation reform, say, you should handle current account deficit. Get your BOP on track. Okay, you will find these points. Get your BOP on track means get this current account and capital account on track. That is the meaning. Okay, is this clear till here? Okay, so external assistance. So ECB, external commercial borrowing, okay, external assistance, okay. Then I'm writing one more point here. I'm writing something like the NRI deposits. In the investment part, I've written something like the NRI deposits. NRI deposits. Non-resident Indian. NRI, non-resident Indian. You're able to get this, no? Okay, so non-resident. See, in the current account, we discussed remittances. What are remittances? Let's say our brothers and sisters who are staying abroad, they are sending money to our families. For what? For personal consumption. We want to spend it. Okay. But NRI deposits are that money which the NRIs are putting in Indian bank. That money which NRIs are putting in Indian banks. Okay. So they generally put the money into some accounts in the Indian banks, which we call it as the foreign currency non-resident Indian account. I'm writing it again, I'll repeat it. See, NRIs put money in Indian banks. First of all, why should NRIs put money in Indian banks? High interest in US, if you know, if you deposit money means nothing you will get. It is like earlier interest rates were even 0.25, 0.5. So nobody will be so much keen in terms of putting money into the bank just to get. So in US they are interested in share markets, they are interested in other investments. That NRI who is an Indian, okay, so who now this non-resident Indian, now he thinks it is better to put or invest money into Indian banking system. Why? At least you will get a higher interest. That's why he will put the money into something like the FCNR account. FCNR means foreign currency non-resident. FCNR, foreign currency non-resident. That means when he is putting money into these accounts, the money will be maintained generally in the foreign currency only, dollars. So that means he's putting this money into Indian accounts. Generally, this currency will be maintained. This account will be maintained in what? Dollars. Are you able to get this? Okay. So don't get confused. Remittances are part of which account? Current account. Remittances are part of current account. No confusion. NRI deposits are part of which account? Capital account. No confusion there. Remittances, current account, and NRI deposits, capital. Are you able to get this point? That is very important. At times he may ask, but in detail again, you will be writing, I think, a detailed notes in the external sector. But what you should understand is, this is what is the BOP. BOP account has the current and capital. Now 1991, we were facing what crisis? BOP crisis. We were facing BOP crisis. Means what? If you see current account, in the current account we had challenges in the current account. Suppose now if you see in 1991 when we were talking about current account, okay, so in the current account there were, what are the challenges? 1991, one, trade. What was the problem? Very high trade deficit. Only imports. Oil was costly during that point of time. Oil is costly also because of situations of Gulf War. I think there was this movie called Airlift. Akshay Kumar. Akshay? Yeah, okay. You will not watch such movies, no? Okay. Fine. Okay, so now Gulf War means what? Oil will become costly. India imports oil, means trade deficit will increase. Okay, trade. That was a problem that time. Two, remittances also not so great in the current account. Hardly very few Indians abroad. Services sector not developed, incoming less that point of time. Income, this is income, there also we had a challenge. So your current account, there was challenges. What is the challenge? Huge current account deficit. Huge current account deficit. Okay. Now that time, how about investments? How about investments in 1990s? We did not open our markets only till 1990. That means less of FDIs, less of FIIs, or less of dollars moving into India. Are you able to get my point? Less of FDIs, less of FIIs. This FII and all, we liberalized basically in 1992. 1992. That means as part of what reforms? As part of economic reforms. As part of economic reforms, we started allowing more foreign investments into India. So that time investments were not there, and even these loans were also restricted. Loans were also restricted. Suppose you have deficit here. Let's say deficit is minus $500. If you have positive here in the capital account, at least if you have plus $1,000, if this incoming is more, what you can do is you can push 500 from here into the current account. You have this capital positive, then you can push it into the current. How much is left in this case? 500 is left. That 500 I can put it as part of our forex, which RBI is maintaining. Are you able to get this point? Okay, so generally what you'll find, even today, you find this deficit with respect to current account. But we are positive generally with respect to capital account because we have more of investments moving in. Okay, and we are borrowing more from outside. So here you generally find we are positive, and here you are negative. But that point of time, what is the situation? Here also there is deficit. You have not opened up your market with respect to the capital account, less investments. Moreover, what about forex reserve? No forex reserve. No forex reserve to manage things. And therefore, we went up into this crisis. That crisis, financial crisis, that is called as what crisis? BOP crisis. Understood? This is the reason we had this crisis called balance of payment crisis. Is that okay? Shabash. Capital account. 2-3 lines on capital. Capital account. It shows a capital expenditure and income. It shows a capital expenditure. Huh? It shows a capital expenditure and income for a country. Okay. Capital expenditure and income for a country. Capital expenditure. It gives a summary of net flow of both public and private investment. It gives a summary of net flow of both public and private investment. Net flow of both public and private investment into an economy. Into an economy. Is the speed okay? It gives a summary of net flow of both public and private investment into an economy. Okay? Is this clear? Next point. ECB means in bracket external commercial borrowings, comma, external assistance, in bracket soft loans, comma, FDI, foreign direct investment, comma, FPI, foreign portfolio investment, comma, NRI deposits, etc., form a part of capital account. Okay. Okay, so that's all. I'm not dictating here. ECB separate. Okay, you're getting my point, no? So I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that wantedly. Okay, so that is basically in the external sector. Again, you will be discussing, you will be writing some notes there. So is this clear? Okay, so that's the reason I'm not dictating or expanding. But ECB means what? It is long-term or short-term loan? Long-term. Okay. Okay. External assistance means what? Soft loan. Soft loan. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Why this changed? Where did that go? Okay. Okay. Is this clear till here? Understood? Okay. Chalo. Now things are okay. Huh. Okay. Now see here. Huh. Okay. Where are we now? Eighth plan. Eighth plan. And eighth plan is implemented after BOP crisis. After BOP crisis. That is what you should understand. That is very important. That is between 1992 to 1997. Okay. Therefore, there will be changes. There will be changes. Okay. What are the changes? You will observe a lot of changes in this plan, obviously. Okay, so you will observe a lot of changes. One is we see there is a change with respect to the methodology of planning itself. Okay, methodology of planning itself. That is indicative. Indicative. I think you got my point, right? Indicative. Okay, and you will find there is rapid overall economic growth. See, what was the targeted growth here? Targeted growth was 5.6. Actual is around 6.8. That means as far as 8th 5-year plan is concerned, we definitely have increased our GDP growth. We definitely have increased our GDP growth. That is what you should understand. And also one more observation, social sector spending was neglected in this plan. Social sector spending, not exactly neglected, but we could not spend as we like because you have to adhere to what stability? You have to adhere to what? Macroeconomic stability. Macroeconomic stability. So if you have to maintain this macroeconomic stability, government has to keep a control with respect to its fiscal deficit. Government has to keep a control with its fiscal deficit. Government cannot borrow and spend as it likes. I think you got my point. So this was the period where we implemented reforms which are called as what? First generational reforms. I'll come to this in detail. I'll come to this first generational and second generational reforms. I'll also dictate notes. Okay, because economic reforms is part of our topic, part of our discussion. I think got my point. So first generational reforms, and we implemented first generational reforms during this point of time. Is this clear, everybody? Understood? Okay, so now the question comes up. This 8th plan acts as an introduction for many important aspects. And what you'll observe is, along with economic reforms, government also came up with several governance reforms. Along with economic reforms, you opened up the market, you liberalized industry, okay, you allowed foreign investments into India, you started moving towards market. And we all know when we move towards market, there will be increase with respect to inequality. There will be increase of what? Inequalities. Therefore, we also came up with something called as what? Along with economic reforms, we also focused on governance. Along with paper 3, they focused on paper 2. They did it. But what happened is they failed in the governance. When you fail in governance, you cannot achieve what? Inclusive growth. You cannot achieve inclusive growth. See, the other day, one student, I think one girl was asking, sir, how about sustainable development? Sustainable development. Okay, so how about sustainable development? What is sustainable development? You'll find now, sustainable development is a fashionable word. Okay, according to me. Who told, sir, you may ask. That's the reason. Who told, sir, sustainable development? It is a fashionable word according to me for a poor country like India, I think I made this statement earlier. Okay, without inclusive growth, I cannot think of future generation. Without inclusive growth now, how will I think of sustainable development for future? Sustainable development is what? I am starving today. You ask me to think about my granddaughter. I am least bothered. I am least bothered. I am starving today. Why should I think about my granddaughter? I should live today. I don't know. That is why for a poor man, go and tell him, BPL families, sustainable development goals, SDG agenda. Okay, he will go mad. He will go mad. First of all, I think you got my point, right? Unless and until you handle poverty. So, if you handle poverty, then only I will talk about sustainable development. Suppose in the interviews also he's asking, sustainable development goals are good, but do you think India should take up binding aspects related to sustainable development? No. Why should they bind us? We are a poor country. We are in a different growth process in comparison to developed countries. They have grown enough and they have polluted the environment enough for achieving the growth. Industrial revolution you did. You ruled us also. Okay, you have grown faster. We liberalized later. And we started polluting now only. That doesn't mean I'm interested in pollution. I will play a planned mechanism based on my circumstances. Based on my circumstances. That is the reason voluntarily India is promising that we will reduce pollution. We will voluntarily handle things, but without solving the problem of poverty, without ensuring inclusiveness, you cannot think of what? Sustainable development. So if we have to talk about, first I told you, first give a gas cylinder to the rural woman. Then she will stop using chula, which will pollute the environment. First increase public transport very properly and ask me not to use my motorcycle. Very clear. Understood? No, very clear. If the public transport is there, you force people, go. Delhi is okay because at least metro is very good here, unlike other places where metro we have to wait. Are you able to get this point? No. So that means sustainable development comes up after you achieve what? At least some inclusiveness. This is what you should remember. Growth with development. Okay. So sustainable development, yes, we will. Okay, but first of all, we have not achieved anything till now. We are slowly started doing it right away. Now, is this clear? Okay. Then in the first generation reforms, we focused on disinvestment. I discussed that. Disinvestment, and we have also mentioned what is disinvestment. In the ninth plan, we were more into talking about strategic disinvestment. We are more into talking about what? Strategic. We are more into, in the ninth plan, we said not only just disinvestment, let us think about strategic disinvestment. This is slow. Yeah. We were also saying let us go ahead with strategic disinvestment. Selling more than 49% of stake. Okay, more than 49%. Okay, in companies. So first of all, disinvestment, primary purpose is what? Revenues. Okay, today's government is talking about strategic disinvestment and privatization. Today, present policy is talking about strategic disinvestment and privatization. I'm not talking about good or bad. You'll only observe 8th plan. You are only focusing on disinvestment. Then in the 9th plan, we were also saying, let us go ahead with strategic disinvestment. That means sell off major stake in government companies which are not doing well especially. Okay, so is this clear? Okay, so that is this is basically in the 9th plan. See here again, we targeted growth was how much? 6.5. Targeted growth was 6.5. And actual growth is around only 5.35. Only 5.35. So growth we did not achieve as expected in the 9th plan. Okay. Now here, privatization of public sector units was started in this plan. Okay. While this investment began in the previous plan. while disinvestment began in the previous plan. Along with that, we also extended something like the welfare aspects during this plan. Welfare, you started, because social sector spending was less in the 8th plan, so we thought we have to do more welfare. So for example, we started coming up with TPDS, Targeted Public Distribution System, in 1997, where we started identifying BPL families separately, APL families separately, and we started targeting ration shops. Ration shops. Are you able to get this? See, Amartya Sen does not believe in the concept of targeting. Okay, there are challenges. But we said TPDS, BPL separately, APL separately. In the food security class, we will see what they did exactly. But we were focusing on welfare. Along with that, they also were focusing on something like, see here, Antyodaya Anna Yojana. You started identifying people who are poorer than BPL, poorer than BPL, poorer than BPL, and you started taking care. That means inclusiveness, indirectly, inbuilt. Inclusiveness as a concept, inclusive growth was used for the first time in the 11th plan. 11th plan. But that does not mean we did not focus on inclusiveness earlier. I'm making it very clear. So inclusive growth, if they ask inclusive growth as a concept, which plan? 11th plan. Okay, because they coined this word, inclusive growth. But inclusive growth as a concept was there from the beginning. Was there from the beginning. For example, we say financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is also aiming towards inclusiveness. Are you able to get this? Banks nationalization, etc. 1969, madam has done it. Okay, you said Garibi Hatao. Instead of Indra Hatao, that means you're talking about poverty in the 5th and the 6th 5-year plan. Are you able to get this? Okay. Then you're talking about focusing on education, etc. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, etc. Are you able to get this? Okay. Right to education being made a fundamental right. Okay. So, as extension of Article 21 of the Constitution. Are you able to get this? Okay, so right to education. This is also focused. That means it's not just about poverty, is not just about hunger. It also has to be handling something like education as well as health. Remember, we talked about it. So like this, they were focusing on developmental aspects in the 9th. Okay, then if you see this 10th plan, 10th plan again, targeted growth was 8. Targeted growth in the 10th plan is 8%. And what we achieved in the 10th plan is 7.6. Okay, 7.6. That means growth wise we have not achieved. Okay. Now here again you will find in the 10th plan 2002 to 7. This was a period again we said, why don't we think of agriculture being the prime moving force? Thought again. Just a thought. Okay, agriculture being a prime moving force. From the beginning it was which one? It was industry which was the prime moving force. And we said, no, let agriculture be the prime moving force in the early 2000s. Okay. So this, and you will find we were bringing in reforms with respect to agricultural marketing, which we call it as the APMC reforms. Okay. APMC reforms, Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee. Heard of them? Government mandis are there. Okay. Government mandis. Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee. So government mandis when we are talking about, see in India, you came up with APMCs for the benefit of farmers. Logic is for the benefit of farmers. But it was difficult to bring reforms in agriculture because agriculture is a state subject. Center comes up with a policy, but it becomes very difficult to implement it at the state level. This was from the beginning, it was there. And that is the reason. Even in the recent past, there was a committee called Ashok Dalwai Committee. Okay, in the recent past, don't worry, in agriculture I will discuss. Ashok Dalwai Committee said, though agriculture is a state subject, at least put agricultural marketing, agricultural marketing in concurrent list. Union, state, concurrent. Though agriculture is a state subject, at least put agricultural marketing in the concurrent list. I think this PPT is uploaded already. Okay. Fine. Put agricultural marketing in the concurrent list. Okay. So, fine. Now, is it clear? Here you will find there is something like handling infant mortality rate, etc. Okay, they targeted 8% growth rate. In UPSC, they'll not ask what is the target of growth rate in the 10th plan. No, or we will get this. That is the reason we are just checking the important points there. Understood? You'll not mug up, huh? Useless, this is all. 10th plan, what is the growth rate? Who wants? Okay, now what should be done with respect to growth, right? I think you got my point. Okay, so you just observe, just observe there. Okay, so then you're talking about literacy, etc., domestic saving, foreign investment, and foreign exchange. Okay, and universal access to primary education. So this was the focus. You will remember the universal access to primary education was a focus in the which 5-year plan? 10th 5-year plan. Okay. Okay. Now, in the 10th plan, that is in the 2002 to 2007, we also observed two things. Obviously, two things which you'll observe is, there is a challenge with respect to one aspect. One aspect is what? Inclusive growth. Challenge. Growth is coming, but employment is not getting created. Are you able to get my point? Growth is coming, but employment is not getting created. Remember the word employment elasticity. That means the growth that was coming was basically, employment elasticity was less. Means growth was mainly, it was a what growth was it? Jobless growth, number one. Number two, growth was mainly coming from which sector? Which sector was growing at a faster pace? Growth was coming from the services sector, and growth was also coming from informal sector. Informal jobs increased. Construction. Today also in today's paper he says one bigger challenge is people started moving into construction. That means you're not focusing much into, that means employment is not getting created in manufacturing in the secondary sector. In the secondary sector you're more keen into going into construction sector. All this actually, people's dependence on construction sector increased after 1990s only. After 90s. I told you, I asked you a question, if you remember a mains question earlier. Mains question. What was the mains question? Impact of globalization on informalization of Indian economy. I discussed this, I think, right? Okay. Impact of globalization on informalization of economy. One reason, more into construction sector jobs. Even today that is a challenge. And most of the construction sector jobs are formal or informal? Informal. Are you able to get this? These are informal. Okay, hope it is clear. Okay, so that is about the 10th plan. Now see in the 11th plan, 2007 to 2012. 2007 to 2012. Okay, so here in the 11th plan, growth, targeted growth, how much? 9. Actual is how much? Around 8. That means we did not achieve the growth as expected. Growth we have not achieved. But what we see here is, there are some targets which we kept during this particular plan, which are important. Which are important means you will use it while writing some answers, etc. So here we will say in the 11th plan, we said we will create 70 million. We will create 70 million new jobs. Okay, so here if you see, create 70 million new work opportunities, and you're going to reduce the educated unemployment basically. This is educated unemployment to below 5%. That means education is there, but jobs are not getting created. So this is something like a fact here. Okay, now one more point. For the first time ever, 30% of the total plan was kept for social services sector. It's a factual point which clearly shows 11th plan mainly was focusing on the concept of what? Inclusive growth. The tag itself is the primary focus of the 11th plan was what? Inclusive growth. Okay, so that means here if you see, ensure that at least 33% of direct and indirect beneficiaries of all government schemes were women and girl children. So you'll find during 2006 plus, there was also gender budgeting related aspects. That means in the government budget itself, you are focusing on something like focusing on schemes related to women. That is also inclusiveness. Inclusiveness from the societal angle is taking care of poor, number one, taking care of vulnerable sections like poor, women and children, disabled, SC, ST, OBC. Are you able to get this? SC, ST, OBC. Of course, there was a question not in economy, in recent mains, there was a question asking about what was the impact of COVID on increase in inequalities and how COVID has affected inclusiveness. Of course, this was a question not in economy, in Indian society. COVID's impact on what? COVID's impact on inclusiveness. Direct question. COVID's impact on inclusiveness. Last year mains. Means what? COVID's impact on education. Kids basically, hardly 1/3 of kids were having access to online education. Online education means mobile should be there, laptop should be there, internet should be there. How much population really had that? So only 1/3 of the population had. And for women, double burden of work. Double burden of work. Okay. So there at home also you are tortured. Office also you have to do double burden of work. And because of COVID, billionaires became richer, but poor people became even more poorer. Inequalities increased further because of, okay. Are you able to get my point? Okay. So those who are working in informal sector, more vulnerable. Government jobs, they were not vulnerable. It is informal sector that was more vulnerable because of COVID, and they lost their jobs, pushing them into poverty, pushing them into crisis. Are you able to get this? No, like this. So here, in the 11th plan, it was mainly focusing on inclusiveness or inclusive growth, and along with that, there was also this focus here, if you see, okay, in direct and indirect beneficiaries of government schemes, and connect every village through telephone by 2007, and provide broadband connectivity to all villages by 2012. Digital India concept. Digital India concept, but again, we did not achieve as expected. So the theme of the 11th plan was, see, this theme of the 11th plan was obviously towards faster and more inclusive growth. Towards faster and more inclusive growth. Though inclusive growth as a concept was there from the beginning, but the theme itself was saying towards faster and more inclusive growth. That is the reason you find 30.2% of the total outlay was for what? Social sector. Again, you will find 33% of direct and indirect beneficiaries of schemes should be what? Women. Clearly it is visible. Okay, then you talk about connecting the villages. That means you're talking about villages with telephone or the digital connectivity 2012, by 2012. The targets look in that format. Okay, and it talks about WHO standards of air quality in all major cities. Delhi, it is not possible. Okay, so, understood, right? Okay, is this clear? Understood. Like this, they were keeping targets related to inclusiveness. Hope it is clear, right? Okay. Somebody asked, every detail should we remember? Is it humanly possible? Okay. It is waste of energy and waste of time. Are you able to get my point? Nobody can remember every detail, and it is not needed. It is not needed. You should remember the story. Why I'm spending so much time on the story? Is that only? That is the reason. When rolling plan came, when there was plan holidays, when they started indicative plan, which plan focused on inclusive growth? If there is a question on foreign investment, if there is a question on disinvestment, do you think disinvestment as a mechanism for handling fiscal deficit or disinvestment as a mechanism for raising revenues, is it a good policy or not? Okay. If there is a question, I can either write saying what is disinvestment as we discussed what is disinvestment, or either I'll write disinvestment as a mechanism started off during the 8th 5-year plan. 8th 5-year plan. Are you able to get this? No. So like this, for that logic, you will remember few things, that's all. Okay. And in which plan there is a focus of Garibi Hatao? 5th plan according to madam. Okay. So 5th plan, and direct focus on poverty, etc. you will find in 5th and the 6th plan. Food calorie method was standardized in which plan? 6th plan. Are you able to get this? Okay. When was first green revolution launched? During which plan? During the plan holiday. Late 60s. Late 60s. Are you able to get this point? When India did devalue its currency for the first time, also in 1966. It was something like, not the 4th actually, to be very specific, it was after, it was kind of a plan holiday period only. Okay, so 66 to 69. Are you able to get this? Okay, in which plan you came up with FCI? 65 to, which plan? 19, when was the third plan? 61 to? Are you able to get this? These, like this, few things. Which plan focused on a shift towards infrastructure? 6th plan. Shift towards infrastructure. Okay, 6th plan. Are you able to get this? Which plan started after the financial crisis? 8th plan. Which plan focused on inclusive growth? 11th plan. Bas. I understood now. In 11th plan, what is the value? Will ask. UPSC is going mad. If it goes mad, let it go. Okay, that are you able to get this point right? Let's be. It's a waste of time. Okay, so don't get too much. They'll not ask. You check for that is the reason. First, check the papers. Check the papers. You'll understand. Easy questions on economy. It's all. Bacha questions is asking. Last year he increased the level a little. Last year prelims especially. Okay, last year prelim. Otherwise, technical subject. Economics is technical. GS itself means students no. Most simple questions are asked in economics. Believe that first subject is easy. Questions he will ask is even more easy. And therefore you can score 19 out of 20, 21 because 2 marks, 2 questions have left to the God. Okay, so therefore my bracket of scoring in prelim should be 19 out of 21. We should have some attitude with respect to exam. I think you got my point, right? I think you got my point. That's very, very important. No, believe. You have to believe. Check the papers. Simple questions are asked. Mains also questions are there from Indian economic development. Whatever points I wrote for that globalization, informalization, not even a single point is from outside. Maybe 1 or 2 somewhere. But it is there in the... it is there. So no tension. First. Is this clear? Yes, very good. Now see 12th plan. Already this 12th plan in between, it is gone. Why? Because we came up with what? Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog, okay? So 12th plan, we can't, it is a huge one. But I will discuss 12th plan and Niti Aayog reports. Wherever it is needed in agriculture, 1 or 2 points I will use. But do not mug up 12th plan now. So 2015 Niti Aayog replaced Planning Commission. Niti Aayog replaced, next that discussion only, Niti Aayog replaced Planning Commission. So here the theme of this plan was faster, more inclusive. Faster, more inclusive and sustainable growth. Faster, more inclusive and sustainable growth. This is the theme. Okay. Now this plan targeted achieving growth of 4%. Okay, in agriculture, okay, and to reduce poverty by 10 percentage points, and we did not achieve it. That's a different thing. Okay, and in 2015, Planning Commission was replaced by Niti Aayog, and from then we are only talking about perspective planning. What planning? Perspective planning. Perspective planning, long-term planning, 10-year, 15-year. 10, 15, 20. Is this clear? Okay. Now, why Niti Aayog? And then we will. That is important. There was a we should that aspect is important. That is why Niti Aayog. Why Niti Aayog? Okay. So let me discuss for 5-10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then we can write notes. Is this clear till here? Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. Suppose I ask you a question, like, let's see how your brain works. Suppose there's a question saying that, do you think economic growth is a prerequisite prerequisite for achieving inclusive growth? Do you think economic growth is a prerequisite for achieving inclusive growth? Achieving inclusive growth. Okay? Okay. Continuation. In Indian context, okay, in Indian context, did really economic growth lead to achieving inclusiveness? And what additional measures should government take to ensure inclusiveness or inclusive growth? Just like that, just like that. So the question, first part of the question, what I said, do you think economic growth is a prerequisite for achieving inclusive growth? Means from where will I write my introduction, your logic, where will you focus? Got the question first? Economic growth means what? Do you think GDP growth is needed? Prerequisite means, is it needed for achieving inclusive growth? That is the question. Okay, so where will you place, from where will you place your introduction from, is what you... Huh? You will first define inclusive growth, huh? Very good. Okay. If the definition, I'm not talking about definition of inclusive growth. So the question is, if you define in a 10 marker what is growth, then again you define what is inclusive growth, then you will write one conclusion also. Are you getting my point? Growth you defined, inclusive growth you defined, fantastic. 10 marker, 150 word. Okay, got my point, right, got my point. You write and see. Growth and that 3, conclusion and both, and then only you'll finish off some 70 words, and then in here and there you'll write some points, okay, in the body, and you say answer is over. Okay, fine, you can write that way. Probably growth and inclusive growth, both has to be defined in the single paragraph itself. That is one way. Or the concept of inclusive growth, specifically, government came up in the 11th, specifically in the 11th 5-year plan. 11th 5-year plan. Okay. Are you able to get this? And do you think growth is needed for inclusive growth? Why? Without growth, how government can take steps? Okay. So that is what I asked. My question is that only, no? What? Why? Without growth, how can government take steps for inclusive growth? Same question you are asking me again. Okay. My question is, got my point? No. Why growth is needed for inclusive growth? That prerequisite and all is English masala there. Okay. Why growth is needed for inclusive growth means, give me 4 points I'm asking. First of all, growth is there. Government will have more tax collections. Your tax to GDP, tax collections will there. Then government can spend on welfare. More job creation, like that, more. Growth is needed for job creation, growth is needed for more tax collections, then only government can spend money on welfare, social welfare schemes, otherwise what will happen? You will become one more Sri Lanka. Okay, I think you got my point right. Okay, without it. Okay, I think you're getting it, right? Then, if your growth is good, if your growth is one of the important macroeconomic indicator, which will motivate foreign investors to invest in India. Yes or no? Growth is not there. You will say, we don't know when we will reach $5 trillion. That only Modi ji will know. Suppose such, if there is that is the reason, always there will be an optimistic attitude in the government. Otherwise, foreign investor, why should he invest in India? Optimism. Yes, 5 trillion. It's a possibility. Are you able to get this? Okay, 5 trillion is a possibility. Then only investors will invest, jobs will get created, infrastructure development will happen. Okay, and there are some agencies like credit rating agencies. Credit rating. They are also controversial only. Few credit rating agencies are there. Standard and Poor. Okay, you have CRISIL. Okay, you call them as, they rate countries also. Whether the country is doing well, not doing well. That is the reason, if growth rates are high, your debt is less, they will rate you properly. Based on these ratings also, investors will invest. Are you able to get my point? No? If the credit rating agencies will rate India at a lower level, okay, you say India, we don't know what will happen. Pakistan, suppose like Pakistan. Will you invest in Pakistan? No. If they give me 100 crores also, I will not invest. Are you able to get this? Why? No political stability. I don't know what will happen. So when credit rating agencies rate you properly, then, okay, that is also important. Growth is needed. One of the important macroeconomic indicator which will decide all other macroeconomic indicators. All other macroeconomic indicators. That is the reason growth is a prerequisite. Then comes growth alone is there, not sufficient for achieving inclusive growth. Growth alone is not sufficient in achieving inclusive growth in India because of failure of trickle down. Remember trickle down? Then you will write those points which we discussed. Why India trickled down? In India, just you have growth. But did we achieve inclusiveness? No. Then that is how you take the question forward. That is how you use planning. Don't look at planning for those numbers. 10 percentage point. Getting my point right? Is this clear? Understood? Okay. I think better we take a break. Take a break and come back and we discuss. Yeah. Okay. Settle down. Yeah. See, there is this doubt like, is cess and surcharge, cess and, no, forget about surcharge, cess and cascading effect same. See, this, of course, you'll discuss in taxing class, but only to just tell you, like, to answer your doubt, cess is something like a tax on tax for a specific purpose. You are levying this. Suppose 30% tax rate is there. On that you are putting in, let's say 0.3%, 0.5 cess. This is 0.5 on that 30%. Why? This money government collects and uses it for a specific purpose. Suppose Swachh Bharat cess. Okay. Education cess. So there is this opposition parties only increasing cess, no? From with the time you launch GST. And from the time, you came up with giving more money to states, Finance Commission started giving more money to states. Center has come up with more cesses and these cesses actually tax on tax for a purpose. Education cess, you'll use it for education, that money. Swachh Bharat says tax on tax, you'll collect that money, use it for a purpose. And these things will never be shared by the center with the states. Central government is levying this cess, no, it will not share with the states. Not share. That means whatever taxes which center is collecting, it will put in a divisible pool. It's a pool. Divisible pool. Okay. From this pool, it will share money with the states. Share money. How much has to be shared? What has to be shared? To which state how much should go? All this will be decided by a constitutional body. Constitutional body called Finance Commission. Okay, so don't get into that too much now. Okay, so I think you got my point. So everybody is asking the newspaper, vertical devolution means what? How much should go from center to states? Vertical devolution. Okay. Horizontal means what? Which state should get how much? Which state should get how much? Okay. Now the challenge is, earlier center never used to put important taxes into this basket. Important taxes center. For example, center used to get maximum revenues from corporate tax. Now you are getting maximum revenue from GST. But earlier corporate tax, center used to get, corporate tax means who will pay? Corporate will pay. Corporate will pay. That was maximum revenue for center, and center was not interested in putting that, not interested to put that corporate tax also into this pool. Okay, from where it will share with the states. It was not interested. So therefore, after a lot of fight again, they came up with something like the 80th constitutional amendment, etc. in the year 2000, after which only this tax also, corporate tax, was pushed into this pool, and they started sharing with the state, like this, fight. Okay, so are you able to get this? No, before 2000, that means this was also not there. Now when center gives more to the states, then center also wants revenue. So center comes up with cesses. Cesses are generally for a purpose, tax on tax for a purpose, which will not be shared with the state. They will not put that money in the pool. They will not share with the states. And center is not spending also this year, that cess amount. You can push it to the next year. Are you able to get this? No, push it to the, so in taxing or in polity again, so I think the basic word is clear, no? Tax on tax for a specific purpose, that there was a doubt. Is this clear? Okay, let's move forward now. Like, what is that? Yeah, planning commission replaced, okay. So now see here, planning commission was replaced by Niti Aayog, right? Niti Aayog. Okay, now first of all, change itself is there. Change itself is there with respect to the mechanisms itself. Okay, what are the changes which you see? Okay, this is basically which you already know. We already know. Okay, one is we were more into what planning? We were more into what? Earlier we were more into centralized. 5-year plans were more into centralized planning. Remember, centralized. And this is something like one policy fits all. One policy is going to fit all. But this one policy may not be appropriate for all the states. All the states. So we were following something like a top-down approach. Top-down, top-down, top-down. Are you able to get this? Okay, top-down. Center, policy framed, push it to the states and basically villages. Now we are talking about decentralization. Decentralization means what? You need to focus on something like bottom-up approach. You know, decentralization means you have to focus on, that means you will take the feedback from the villages and also from the states, and then the policy will be implemented based on the requirement. So that is basically called as what? Bottom up. That means you need more participation of what? More participation of states. Decentralization, more participation of states with respect to the policy making and with respect to the decisions. Are able to get this? Okay, but our policies were more of a centralized nature, more of a centralized nature. This is one important aspect which you should observe. Another one is, earlier role of government was purely, basically government was also into regulation, plus government was also into business. Government was into regulation and government was also into business. Government will be coming up with policies and government was also participating in business fundamentals. But over a period after 1991, then after the 1997, after 2000, after 2005, and especially after Modi ji came to power, okay, so what you will observe is government will be only a facilitator. Government will only be a facilitator. Are you able to get this? Okay, so then again one more important thing is, if you see earlier governments, I'm not talking about good, bad. So there may be some people who are pro-Congress government or pro-socialist, whatever it is. I'm not talking about the political aspect. I'm only saying earlier basically you were more into something like you were more focused on welfare, of course. Okay, more focused. We were focused on welfare, does not mean welfare happened. See, you're more focused on welfare, and because of lot of inefficiencies, inclusive growth did not happen. You were focused. You were taking care of poor people. You said, we will come up with PDS, Antyodaya Anna Yojana, midday meal scheme was there. Okay, Operation Blackboard was there, education, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan is there. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan is there, and the government school teacher is not there. Are you able to get my point now? Okay, welfare, no doubt, good. Welfare is good. Welfare is good, provided welfare reaches the people. See, how do you handle corruption? You cannot handle corruption by coming up with ethics, aptitude, integrity as part of your paper 4. Integrity is not injection that you can inject and tomorrow morning you will start working efficiently, effectively, and for the poor. Are you able to get my point? If you want to come up with reducing corruption, the only option is technology. The bureaucrat should not have option to become corrupt. The bureaucrat should not have option. Options are not there, what you will do? The taxpayer will not come to you. Okay, and stand in front of you. This is what government, Modi ji says, no, there should not be a connectivity between the tax officer and the taxpayer. Tax officer and the taxpayer, because tax harassment is too much. Tax harassment is too much. You can't handle a government officer on a continuous basis. Government officer is government officer. Okay, very difficult to handle tax harassment. Like Cave Coffee Day. Cave Coffee Day owner Siddharth committed suicide, right? Of course, due to multiple reasons. One reason, never trust friends in business. Number two, know too much of welfare. 20,000 employees, you're paying salaries, you felt poor women working in the coffee farms. Yes, yes, yes. Pay them more, pay them more. What you will pay? You have to pay when money is moving in. Money is not moving in, you will retrench labor. You've not done it because I know this IAS officer very close, the old man who was trying to reframe after his death the Cave Coffee Day. How do you handle this Cave Coffee Day? Actually, his wife was very efficient enough in handling the Cave Coffee Day. And this IAS officer who was mainly trying to sit on the board to revamp the Coffee Day, basically. Coffee Day. He's good. He's a good man. He's not like Vijay Mallya. Vijay Mallya always smiling, see? The glamour in his face never goes down. But Cave Coffee Day owner is a person who was good, but due to some tax issues, tax harassment, people not coming at the right time, and he had to commit suicide. I think you're getting my point. No, tax policies, tax harassment. So government's interference. And if policies have to become efficient, corruption should reduce. Obviously, for inclusive growth, trickle down. Corruption will reduce only. Kautilya says, Sama Danda. Danda is also. Okay, so corruption, you should make things so difficult that there is no option to become corrupt. So for that, JAM, Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, linking things with technology, proper identification, money directly comes into your account, direct cash transfer. Are you able to get my point? No, these are some changes which government is trying. Government is trying to bring these changes. I think you're getting my point. Okay, so welfare, now government is also talking about welfare now, but along with welfare, government is also talking about efficiency. One of the objective of government also should be profit. Otherwise, what you will do? Sell it off to sell off Air India. Air India, what happened, ma? One of the best flights. One of the best flights. I think Air India, I felt it like it's not like our SpiceJet where you can't move your leg like this. Okay, so and still you could not manage it. I think you got my point. So just welfare doesn't work. Okay, along with welfare, and government is more of a facilitator, it will create an environment for doing business. And government has no business to stay in business. Not my quotation, madam. Nirmala Sitharaman madam said, government has no business to stay in business. It's a clear indication of why, what? Privatization. Privatization. I think you got my point right. I'm not talking privatization good or bad. That is, I'm not concerned about that. Okay, then comes, now if you see, when we are talking about infrastructure and more focus on infrastructure. Infrastructure and all is basically, you should think of long-term policy. Long-term policy making. Long-term policy making. One day it will not happen. Long-term policy making, long-term perspective. Okay, so that is also there. Okay. Now, earlier, planning was mainly handled by this entity called what? Planning Commission. Planning Commission. Okay. In Planning Commission, what you will observe, there are certain differences anyhow. Okay. And today you have Niti Aayog. Today we have Niti Aayog. Okay. Planning Commission had some financial powers. Planning Commission had some financial powers. It had a role with respect to financial powers. But Niti Aayog today is basically a think tank. Niti Aayog is basically a think tank, okay? And it is purely an advisory body. Niti Aayog is purely an advisory body. Advisory body, it will assist or advise on several aspects with respect to economics, several aspects with respect to policies, etc. It will advise. Okay, so this is something like what you will observe is financial powers are not there. Another thing is, in Planning Commission, participation of states is very limited. Participation of state. Limited participation of states. Limited participation. Limited. Anyhow, I will dictate, you just observe. Limited participation of states when it comes to planning commission, but in Niti Aayog, you have more participation of states. Recent 7th Governing Council meeting. Okay, all the chief ministers of state and also the lieutenant governors, okay, they were sitting and talking about different aspects, isn't it? Okay, and one of the aspects is obviously inflation. One of the aspects is obviously inflation. They were talking about palm oil, etc. They were talking about growth-related aspects. Okay, and they were talking about the decisions taken by the Monetary Policy Committee. Don't worry about that committee. It is all about repo rate. Heard of this word? Okay, so inflation basically. Inflation. Okay, all these important issues, states have a say. States have a say. Better stay. Decentralization. No, decentralization. States have better participation. Okay, and in planning commission, it was purely full-time members. Full-time, okay. And here you will have also something called as part-time members who are there, you know, who are participating in the Niti Aayog. You know, somebody who is doing research, etc. Okay, so in the political policy, somebody who worked in tests, etc. They have these opportunities in the Niti Aayog. Okay, so advisory body. So I'm not getting to those discussions like if you advise will the government take, etc. But at the same time, they have a voice. They have a voice. I think you got my point. No, states have a voice. You can raise your voice at least. Okay, so there is participation that happens. Okay, so is this clear? Okay, in this Niti Aayog, again, you have this governing council where the meetings take place regularly. Okay, and you also have regional councils. Okay, you have participation of chief ministers, lieutenant governors, etc. So you have better participation. That is also one difference which you find between the planning commission and Niti Aayog. Okay, okay. One, financial powers. Financial powers. Here, it has financial powers. Niti Aayog does not have financial powers. It's only a think tank. It is purely an advisory body. Okay. Two, planning commission was mainly operating in the centralized mechanism. That means it is basically focusing on top-down approach, okay, or one policy fits all. Niti Aayog, more decentralization, better participation of states, okay, through governing council or the regional councils, okay. And three, planning commission, whenever planning commission used to come up with certain rules, it was making the states obligated to follow. That means it was enforcing. Planning commission was enforcing on the states, But Niti Aayog, you don't have these powers of enforcement. It is only a participatory decision making where you are taking, it is a kind of a stakeholder approach. Now everybody is participating. Now Niti Aayog cannot impose something on the states. And Niti Aayog is a think tank. You will have people with good knowledge who are there in the think tank, who give some suggestions to the government, and later on government may follow, government may take it or not, but you have a voice to raise when it comes to Niti Aayog. Okay, and in planning commission earlier you had only full-time members, but in Niti Aayog you have, along with the full-time members, you also have some part-time members. And the reason is something like, one, it was earlier purely socialism or some kind of mixed economy. Now we are more focused towards market and privatization. Earlier, remember, we went ahead with bank nationalization. Today you're talking about bank mergers, privatization. Bank mergers and privatization. There is a difference if you observe bank mergers and privatization. Earlier, one aspect is we were talking about cooperative federalism. Heard of this word? Cooperative federalism. Okay, now also we talk about cooperative federalism. Today also we talk about cooperative federalism. But along with cooperative federalism, we are also talking about competitive federalism. Along with cooperative federalism, okay, in GST you will understand competitive federalism. Okay, GST class you will discuss this. No, how GST has changed center-state relations. Okay, so that means it's not just about cooperative federalism. Yes, Niti Aayog ensures cooperative federalism. Okay, cooperative federalism. Everybody knows now what is federalism and all. Yes, cooperative federalism. Along with that, now today you're also talking about what? Competitive federalism. Competitive federalism. Okay. Is this clear? I know students actually. Recently, yesterday also, I met one student. There are some students. These are called as a rebel batch. The rebel batch is basically they do a lot of research in these institutions like TISS, etc. Okay, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and then they want to bring some change. They go and talk to the prisoners cell, and they do these projects. I don't know like how many of you know that. Similarly, they want to bring reforms with respect to several aspects. But when they go in reality, when they go out in reality, and when they operate in reality, they find a different situation out there in India. Different situation means you suggest prisoners are also humans. States also, there should be decentralization. You're saying Niti Aayog is decentralization. Is decentralization really happening? Is there really cooperative federalism? They do a lot of research, they go and talk to people, etc. And then they come up with their thesis, submit, and they feel bad when it is not accepted. It's only advisory body. And when they feel too much, they go abroad. Are you able to get my point? Now, this is a common thing. This is a common thing. I have seen very close students, and again the policy making there. Again, you have this bureaucrat. You can only submit your report, and again the policy bureaucrat is again there. Okay, you want to bring reforms with respect to, you have to meet the DG prisons. You want to bring some reforms with respect to states, etc. Again, you land up with some IAS officer there, some IPS officer. And then again the reform is not there. But they are not power seekers. They are not power seekers. They are change seekers basically. They want change. And since in India, bringing change without power becomes difficult. Wait. So they will go abroad. Huh? Nothing like that. They are working on that. Okay, so what you may think like Niti Aayog is there. Sir, every reform, is it going to be implemented? Yes, this is India. This is India. If you have to implement something, you have to implement it. There are two ways of bringing in reforms in a country. One way, consult everybody, take their permission, accept, then implement reforms. Democracy, which I don't believe. 100% democracy, I don't believe. Why don't believe? Of course, my Vishnu. Okay, I don't believe because policy implementation will become very difficult. 100% I'm saying democracy should be there. You can't be China. But I'll ask everybody and I'll take everybody's consent. Tell me it is good. When will you implement? Somebody will say there is some problem. But current government's changes are basically implement the policy first. Then I will make the change. Are you able to get my point? There's a difference. For example, let me push demonetization. Let me push reforms. Then based on the reform, whatever is needed, I will try to accommodate it. I think you're able to observe. I think you should be able to observe things. Otherwise, implementation issues, etc., there will be issues. And if some students are asking, Niti Aayog is there? Is there cooperative federalism? Is everything going to the states? Is states participation there? It will slowly happen. In one day nothing will happen. I think you're getting my point, right? Okay. So is this clear till here? Okay. Then you put the heading, achievements of planning, write down, achievements and criticisms of 5-year plan. Achievements and criticism of 5-year plan. Achievements and criticism of 5-year plans. Okay, first point. Self-sufficiency in basic and capital good industries. Basic capital good industries and also consumer good industries. Sorry, I should have mentioned basic, capital good and consumer good industries. Basic, capital and consumer good industries. Is this okay? Next point. Okay. Progress in industry and industrial growth. Progress in industry and industrial growth. Okay, now you may ask, sir, you only told that our manufacturing is stagnant. Okay, but when you compare it to 1950s, there was some progress with respect to industry and industrial growth, though it is not as expected. Though it is not as expected. I think you got my point, right? Okay, then 3, write down. Increase in economic growth. Increase in economic growth. Why I can write this point is, we have crossed Hindu rate of growth, isn't it? Hindu rate of growth was what? Low levels of growth, that is below 3.5%. Okay. Increase in economic growth, comma, savings and investment, comma, per capita income, Is that okay? Then development in the next point, development in the field of science and technology. Development in the field of science and technology. Okay. But again, you know, research and development, there are issues. Okay, all that. Okay, so yes. Development in the field of science and technology. Next point. Development of economic infrastructure. Development of economic infrastructure. Particularly in the field of transport, irrigation and telecommunication. Irrigation and telecommunication. Okay, one more point. Improvement in social indicators. Improvement in social indicators like literacy, comma, IMR, infant mortality rate, IMR, comma, MMR, etc. MMR, maternal mortality rates. Okay, so some we have, okay, MMR, IMR, literacy rate, etc. Is this clear? Understood, no? Then put the heading criticisms. Criticism of 5-year plans. Criticism. 1. Politicization of planning process. Politicization. Politicization of planning process. I think you understood what it is. New government comes, new plan comes. Okay, politicization of planning process. 2. Failure to eliminate poverty. Failure to eliminate poverty. Is that okay? Then 3. Lopsided, LOPSIDED, lopsided employment strategy. Lopsided, or you can write failure to handle the problem of unemployment. If you don't like that point, no, you write it failure to handle unemployment problem. Okay. LOPSIDED, lopsided employment strategy. Our focus on employment creation was not efficient. Are you able to get this? We thought growth will create jobs. Remember? Growth will create jobs. That did not happen. Lopsided employment strategy. In fact, we did not have a specific employment strategy in our planning only. No specific employment strategy in planning. This I will do specifically to handle the problem of employment. Okay, you're only talking about jobs. Then what are you going to do to create jobs? To handle, okay. See, today the problem is also about underemployment. It's not just about employment, no. Today the challenge is also underemployment. Underemployment, you know what is underemployment, no. Underemployment means what? Huh? Employment not on the level of the skill set. Only that? Or only that or anything else? Work is not available. Even the worker wants to work more, work is not available. Okay. When you're not getting work according skill. One is skills. Okay. Not willing to work. No. See, what is the main reason for underemployment? Not skill, poverty. What, yaar? Skill. Underemployment. I have a fascination for driving Ola, handling that useless customer. Being an engineer. No. Poverty. Poverty will push me for underemployment. Not skill. Skill comes next. No, poverty. Poverty. See, underemployment is not just about, for example, in UP, there was some government notification. Okay, and 25 lakh people applied. Okay, engineers also, engineer no problem, everywhere he is there, from constable to IPS. Okay, I did not feel bad. Constable to IPS engineer is there, so no tension, okay. Okay, PhDs were there for that group 4 job of messenger. Either you should be very fascinated for government, or either there is, you don't have proper employment opportunity. So fascinated that only in government office I will sweep. Okay, or that's not the case. That's not the case. That's not the case. It is about creation of jobs. Now, underemployment is one, not being paid according to your qualification. Number one, not being paid according to your qualification. Number two, it is you're not working in a job in line with your education or skills. In line. Engineer working in call center, according to me, underemployment. Engineering plus MBA working in call center, though you get 60,000 also, 70,000. Receptionist. Okay, now see, don't, this is English-based job, no. See, logic is, we're not utilizing the skills which we have got, that is also underemployment. 3, you're looking for full-time work, but you're only getting part-time. Looking for full-time, but only you're a pizza boy. Other than that, nobody else is calling you. Now, this is also underemployment. Are you able to get this? Today, the biggest challenge is not unemployment. The biggest challenge is underemployment. And the reason for underemployment is skill comes later. What skill, ma? It is poverty. Family will push you into underemployment. You have not seen ads of this Naukri.com. He'll say, boss will torture, he'll say, chalo niklo. Why? One more job I will get. When you don't have option, that is what is. Is this clear, right? Now today the challenge is that. Okay. Next point. 3, underemployment and all. Okay, 3, failure to check the growth of black money. Failure to check the growth of black money. Failure to check the growth of black money. Is that okay? That we can't handle now. Let's go to the next point. Concentration of economic power. Concentration of economic power. Inequalities are high, that is the meaning. Concentration of economic power. Okay. Then regional imbalances. Regional imbalances. See, today, most of the industries that are coming, okay, investments that are coming, they are coming in South and West India. Not in North and Northeast. They are not interested in North and Northeast. They are interested in South and West. Are you able to get this? Okay, next. Regional imbalance. Then, centralized nature of planning. Centralized nature of planning. That is, plans were program driven. Plans were program driven. rather than demand driven. Rather than demand driven. Is that okay? Next. Excessive emphasis on PSUs. Excessive emphasis on PSUs. You know what are the problems, PSU, inefficiencies were there, okay? Last point. Agriculture overshadowed by industry. Agriculture overshadowed by industry in the planning process. Agriculture overshadowed by industry in the planning process, okay. Then put the heading, why Niti Aayog? Or Niti Aayog. Okay, why Niti Aayog? Okay. Write down. Okay. The Planning Commission was replaced. The Planning Commission was replaced by Niti Aayog. By Niti Aayog after the key announcement. After the key announcement. After the key announcement, PM Narendra Modi made. PM Narendra Modi made on Independence Day. On Independence Day, which came into action on 1st Jan 2015. 1st Jan 2015. Okay. Next paragraph. The Planning Commission was established on The Planning Commission was established on 15th March 1950. 15th March 1950. With a main motive of making 5-year plans. Main motive of making 5-year plans in accordance with USSR. In accordance with USSR. Is that okay? Fine. Next point or next paragraph. Niti Aayog, write down. Niti Aayog was also deemed to be an advisory institution. Niti Aayog was also deemed to be an advisory institution. That can advise both states and center on important policy matters. Okay. Continue. The chairperson of the committee is the Prime Minister, comma. Governing Council consists of CMs of states, CMs of states and lieutenant governors of UTs and lieutenant governors of UTs. Is that okay? CMs of states and lieutenant governors of UTs. Continue. Full stop. Regional council is set up. Regional council is set up to address specific issues. To address specific issues. It comprises of CMs of states, and lieutenant governors of UTs of the concerned region. Lieutenant governors of UTs of the concerned region. Okay. Full stop. Continue. Speed is okay? Yeah. The whole staff of the Niti Aayog. Continue. The whole staff of Niti Aayog is divided into two hubs. Okay. One, knowledge and innovation hub. Knowledge and innovation hub. Okay. First one, write down there, 1-2 lines. It has 12 to 14 verticals. 12 to 14 verticals. Which deals with different sectors. And builds Niti's think tank capabilities. Builds Niti's think tank capabilities. Is that okay? Fine. Then, 2, Team India Hub. Okay. It works as an interface. Between central government and state government. Okay. Now what you will do, put the heading Niti Aayog and this side Planning Commission and draw a line. Niti Aayog, Planning Commission. Got it right? Niti Aayog and Planning Commission. Yeah. Important. Yeah. Niti Aayog on one side, Planning Commission on the other side. Okay. So write down first under Niti Aayog, first point under Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is basically an advisory body. Which cannot mandate or impose policy. Or impose policies. Mandate or impose policies. Okay. That's all. Next, in the Planning Commission, write down. Planning Commission had the power. to impose policy on the states. Planning Commission had the power to impose policy on the states. Is this clear? Okay. Next. Niti Aayog, write down. Niti Aayog. Second point. Niti Aayog cannot allocate funds. Niti Aayog cannot allocate funds. These powers still remain with the Finance Ministry. These powers still remain with the Finance Ministry. Okay. Now in the Planning Commission, just mention. In the Planning Commission, write down. Planning Commission enjoyed the power. Planning Commission enjoyed the power. Planning Commission enjoyed the power to allocate funds to ministries. Enjoyed the power to allocate funds to ministries and state governments. Okay. Okay. Then come to Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog, write down. State governments play a proactive role. State governments play a proactive role when it comes to Niti Aayog. When it comes to Niti Aayog. Okay. Now write in the Planning Commission. Planning Commission. Decisions were more centralized under Planning Commission. Decisions were more centralized. Decisions were more centralized under Planning Commission. Is that okay? Now come to Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog has provision for part-time members. Niti Aayog has provision for part-time members. Part-time members. Okay. In Planning Commission, no provision for part-time members. No provision for part-time members. Okay. Now in the Niti Aayog, write bottom-up approach is followed. In Niti Aayog, write down bottom-up approach is followed. Bottom-up approach is followed in Niti Aayog. Okay. And in planning, write down what approach? Top-down approach. Top-down approach. Okay. Last point, write down. Niti Aayog. In Niti Aayog, write down. Niti Aayog has governing council. Niti Aayog has governing council with chief ministers of states. With chief ministers of states and lieutenant governors of UTs and lieutenant governors of UTs as members. Lieutenant governors of UTs as members. Planning, right on Planning Commission. Planning Commission reported to NDC. What is NDC? National Development Council. Okay. So Planning Commission reported to NDC. Okay. NDC comprising of Planning Commission reported to NDC comprising of CMs and Lieutenant Governors. Comprising of CMs and lieutenant governors. Is that clear till here? Understood? Okay. We are actually our next topic is WTO, but wait. Do we have class this week again? Saturday is there. Okay. Saturday? Saturday and Sunday. Okay, okay. So I think still it's one thing which I did not dictate, which I want to, is the structural reforms. I want a separate heading. I think you got my point, right? Structural reforms. Structural reforms. See why this is I'm dictating in the last is this again we will be doing it in detail with respect to a particular topic. Industry, again industrial policy 1991 plus. Again banking, what are the banking reforms? Are you able to get this? Okay, so that is the reason. Okay, so there, I'll explain then and there only. Then structural reforms, okay. Then you will put 8th 5-year plan plus. 8th 5-year plan plus, okay. 8th 5-year plan. 8th 5-year plan is what? 92 to 97. 92 to 97. Okay, so there were some reforms which they were talking about, so that we will talk. Okay, under that first side heading, foreign exchange reforms. Foreign exchange reforms. Okay, foreign exchange reforms. Okay, see, and again the foreign exchange class we will discuss. But now just mention, write down first point, the first important reform. The first important reform in the external sector. The first important reform in the external sector was made in the foreign exchange market. Was made in the foreign exchange market. Foreign exchange market to resolve BOP crisis. To resolve BOP crisis. Okay. It included devaluation of rupee. Devaluation of rupee, which also led to an inflow of foreign exchange. Devaluation of rupee, which also led to an inflow of foreign exchange. Okay. Okay. Now, see, we have discussed this word earlier. Devaluation. Okay. What is the difference between depreciation and devaluation? Depreciation I discussed, mentioned it. Done, no? Okay. Now, very good. Shabash. Very nice. Now the question is, more remittances will come. Class is not over. Don't pack your bags. More remittances will come when you devalue your currency. Is that okay? Listen to the question first. More remittances will move in when you devalue your currency. $1, no? So I'll ask you an example. If your brother wants to send money, $1 is 80 is better. $1 is 70. Is it better? 80. 80 is better. I'll ask, wait, let it become 100. $1 is 100, then you send money. More I will get. Are you able to get my point? I think you got my point, right? Okay. So that is something we should understand. And one more thing is, countries competitively devalue their currency. Countries competitively devalue. What is this countries competitively devalue? That means, let's say, China used to do it earlier. China used to devalue its currency. What's the time? Okay. China used to devalue its currency. Why China devalues its currency? To make their what? Exports cheap. and they want to flood global markets with Chinese goods. And their growth is also because of what? Exports. Okay, China used to devalue. Now seeing China, if suppose South Korea does it, suppose Japan does it, okay, everybody is competitively devaluing. They are also devaluing because it's not market. Okay, competitively devaluing to make their exports what? To make their exports cheaper. This is called as currency war. Okay, currency war. Okay, this is clear, no? Currency war. That is the danger which we talked about. Now the question is, over appreciation of currency, is it okay for India? For example, tomorrow $1 becomes 30 rupees. Huh? Is it okay for India? No. Why? Our exports will become costly. Okay. This over appreciation of currency, over appreciation of currency, making exports non-competitive is called, one more word, is called what? Dutch disease. Disease, don't think some disease. Okay, over appreciation of currency. Currency war I dictated earlier, isn't it? Okay, but Dutch disease I did not dictate. So this is there in your NCERT also. When you're reading, you'll come across this word, Dutch disease. Dutch disease. What is Dutch disease? Over appreciation. Over appreciation. Over appreciation of currency, making exports non-competitive. I think you're getting my point. No, tomorrow $1 is 80 becomes $1.30 suppose. Okay, what will happen? Exports will become what? Costly. Normally nobody is buying our exports suppose. If your exports become costly means it is difficult, no? I think you got my point. Is this clear? Okay. Okay. Last side heading. This topic is not over. I'll dictate in the next class. Last side heading. Next point. Deregulation of industries. Next side heading. Deregulation of industries. Deregulation. I think you would have mentioned Dutch disease there. Okay, Dutch disease is what? Over appreciation making exports non-competitive. That line should be there in the notes. That line should be there in the notes. Over appreciation making exports non-competitive. Okay. Deregulation of industries, write down. 1. The regulatory mechanism in India was introduced in various ways. Was introduced in various ways. With respect to industrial licensing. With respect to industrial licensing. With respect to industrial licensing. Under which every entrepreneur had to get permission from the government officials to start a firm, comma, close a firm, or decide the number of goods, that could be produced. Okay, that could be produced. Next point. The private sector was not allowed in many industries. Not allowed. Okay. Allowed. Write down. Some goods, continue, same point. Some goods were specifically reserved. Some goods were specifically reserved for small scale industries. For small scale industries. Okay, clear. Next point. Next point. Industrial reforms. Write down, write down. Industrial reforms. Industrial reforms removed many of these barriers. Industrial reforms removed many of these barriers. Industrial licensing was abolished. Industrial licensing was abolished. For almost all product categories. For almost all product categories. For almost all product categories. Except a few. Except few. In bracket, write down alcohol to comma, yeah. Alcohol, comma, hazardous chemicals. Hazardous chemicals, comma, industrial explosives. Industrial explosives, comma, electronics, comma, aerospace, drugs, etc. Drugs, etc. Last point for today. Last point for today. Write down. Many goods produced by small scale industries. Many goods produced by small scale industries have now been de-reserved. Have now been de-reserved. Have now been de-reserved, and the market is allowed to determine the prices. The market is allowed to determine the prices. Wait, put the heading tax reforms and leave it. Yeah, tax reforms in the notes, like tax reforms, and leave it. Is this clear? Yes.